Before this video starts, I would like to shout out Trudy Dyke, my one and only Patreon supporter. If you would like to support me, all my links will be in the description, along with the link to the video that the Iron Musket did on this topic, as well as a link to Boo's Instagram account. Go send her some love and support because she's the one who really deserves it. But with that out of the way, hello everybody, I am not dead yet, and today I've got a story for you full of lies, deception, stealing, manipulation, gaslighting, and one big piece of shit with 3 million subscribers. So for those of you who are not in the loop, Boo, also known as Low Calorie Recipes 98, on Instagram created something known as the Ridiculous Brownie. 2 months ago, Jeremy Ethier, a YouTuber with over 3 million subscribers, entered her DMs and said that he would like to use her brownie recipe in a cookbook he plans to release and sell. When she said no, he basically said there's nothing you can do about it and you should be glad that I even offered to give you credit in the first place. What I'm going to do in this video is going to read out the DMs that Boo has sent me in their entirety, interjecting when I think necessary. After that, I will play you a couple of audio messages that Boo and I had in a back and forth to give you an idea of why she waited so long to come forward and the effects that this had on her mental health, and then I will give my own take and end the video. You can choose to agree with me, disagree with me, but I will lay everything out in front of you in full. Let's get into it. Alright, as you can see, there he is, Jeremy Ethier, blue checkmark, June 17th, 6:30. No clue if it's PM or AM. Just wanted to reach out and say how much I love your brownie recipe. Haha. Came across your page a couple months ago and have been testing/tweaking your brownie recipe based on your updates and stories too, smiley face. We're planning to include it or a close variation of it in one of our cookbooks for our members. We'll credit you, of course. Would you prefer a link to your Instagram? Also, would love to talk about collabs for some of the future recipes we're working on for @BuiltWithScience. Could definitely use a creative brain like yours and would be a lot of fun. Just let me know, smiley face. Hey Jeremy, thanks for reaching out and a belated welcome to the Ridiculous Brownies gang, smiley face. Glad to hear you've been enjoying it too, and playing with the recipe. It truly is so versatile, isn't it? Still blows my mind. I genuinely can't believe, and still don't sometimes, that I'm the first person to have discovered the cocoa, protein, flour, sweetener, diet soda combination for brownies. I'm interested in what you're proposing and potential collaborations, but before we rush into agreeing on anything, can you tell me a bit more about you and what your plans are for the cookbook? Would love to hear more about your story and vision to see how we can best work with and add value to each other. Yes, I have a general cookbook we're working on and have the brownies already in there with your credit. But we wanted to talk about making another specific cookbook we'd work with you on. A dessert-only one, for example. If you're interested, we can hop on a call sometime next week just to get acquainted and explore the possibilities. Okay, hold up. Is this cookbook that uses my Ridiculous Brownies recipe, or a variant of it, going to be sold for profit? Would also like to see that section first if possible. Please understand, and as you have seen from the following months, haha, that this has been 12 months of my life's work, and it never existed before I created it. So this recipe, and specifically amongst the hundreds that I've given for free, does mean a lot to me. I'd like us to do this right. I'm sure you understand as a fellow content creator. Smiley face. Ridiculous Brownies are my baby. Haha. And then tear face. Jeremy replies, totally get it and understand. It'll be part of a cookbook we'll be selling in a couple months or so, which has a compilation of roughly 100 recipes we've worked on. The brownies are just one of them, and it is where you will be credited. I'm more than happy to send over the write-up we have of it once we're ready. Great, looking forward to seeing it. Good to see that you're crediting your sources. It really is just good manners and common courtesy as creators, or just as human beings really, isn't it? Again, tear face. Especially if Remington and Will Tenney have taught us anything. Yeah, remember Remington? I remember Remington. I'm still blocked by Remington. I can't comment on his channel anymore. Also, what kind of compensation are you thinking of for all the work I put in to create the Ridiculous Brownies recipe? A one-time payment or a certain percentage commission of proceeds? He replies, haha, totally appreciate the work and thought you've put into it. And you will be receiving a ton of exposure and traffic from our large audience and tight community, just like the one you have. Through the credits we'll be providing to you, whom I'm sure will love the various other recipes you have as well. And she goes, let me get this straight. You and your brand profits off other people's hard work without asking for their consent and pays them in exposure? Just want to be 100% clear I'm not misunderstanding what you're saying. June 18th. She says, hi Jeremy. Having reread our initial interactions when you first reached out, as well as how quickly you responded in mere minutes until any mention and inquiry of how you compensate others for their time and work, to which you appeared to have suddenly disappeared for 18 hours and 15 hours, and counting respectively. I'm pretty sure she probably means 18 hours and 15 minutes. I'll be honest and say that I am starting to second guess your good intentions. I try not to make assumptions and prefer to just ask directly to avoid miscommunication though. So I'd like to clarify your intentions when you sent me this initial message. Quote, was your intention to ask for my consent to use my ridiculous brownie recipe? Or in your words, a quote-unquote close variation of it in your cookbook for personal profit? Or was it to tell me that you will be using my work and doing so regardless of whether I like you to or not? Perhaps to cover your tracks if anyone ever calls you out, and that is a really good point. Remember plausible deniability? Because I remember plausible deniability, and I think that's exactly what this is. If anyone ever calls him out, he can wash his hands and say, hey, I tried to give her credit. Notice how the facade will soon drop of friendliness, we'll say. As much as I'm starting to have my own doubts, I believe it is important to first give you the benefit of the doubt and not jump to conclusions, so I look forward to your reply. He replies the next day, the 19th of June at 1:49, to get called out for crediting your idea in our book? To be clear, every single recipe out there has come from an origin. Every single idea, for that matter, has. People don't quote-unquote own these, unless patented/trademarked, of course. Yet these are distributed and used by others in a product without crediting the original source, which, for that matter, often eventually gets lost/forgotten. The soda brownie recipe and variations of it have been posted a lot of places without credit, and to be honest, that will continue to be the case. It just so happens that we happen to find the source of the idea and wanted to support you with a simple gesture, something we did not have to do. Interpret that how you wish. I understand you're protective of it, and I totally get it as a content creator myself, but those are the facts. Where have we heard this before? Oh, it's not illegal. People post these recipes and steal stuff all the time. Just look at Remington James. Yeah, okay. Let's look at Remington James. Because honestly speaking, I think what happened to Remington James is the reason why he reached out. He saw the massive backlash Remington received when he was selling recipes in his cookbook that didn't belong to him, that he didn't create. And he wanted to avoid that, which is why he reached out. Notice again, he really emphasizes the whole, we didn't have to. He's using the exact same hand that he reached out as a gesture of kindness to shake hands with her. That exact same hand is now a closed fist he's willing to strike her with. We didn't have to do this, keep that in mind. This stuff pisses me off. Oh, and let's not forget the whole getting called out for giving you credit. Don't play dumb. You know that you could get called out for stealing her recipe. We've seen what happens when you do. I refuse to believe you're that stupid. But anyway, she replies, "Hi, Jeremy. I'll respond in several parts of your message and reiterate what I've previously said to highlight any inconsistencies. I will respond to two main portions. I will then explicitly let you know that I do not consent to your using my ridiculous brownies recipe in your cookbook to make a profit off of. First message, Wednesday, 16th of June, 2021, 23:30. I love your brownie recipe, quote unquote. We're planning to include it or a close variation of it, quote unquote. It will be based on your updates and stories, quote unquote. Came across your page a couple months ago, quote unquote. Most recent message, Friday, 18th of June, 2021, 1849. Using, quote unquote, your idea in our book. It just so happens that we were able to find the source of the idea, quote unquote. Also, notice how he shifts from calling it her recipe to her idea, because recipe is a lot more personal. Ideas are things that everyone has. Oh, it's just an idea. You know exactly what your source is. Crediting is not a favor, it's a basic courtesy and the bare minimum. I agree. Your message, Friday, 18th of June, 2021, 1849. The soda brownie recipe and variations of it has been posted at a lot of places without credit, and to be honest, that will continue to be the case. Quote unquote. Again, does that sound familiar? We've heard all this shit before. But she replies, my response: 1. Bad behavior from other content creators does not excuse your own. 2 wrongs do not make a right. This is not a matter of legality, but of morals. Exactly, and that was my point with the Remington thing. Legal does not equal moral, and I think a lot of us agree with that. 2. Other creators making content about ridiculous brownies is very different from you literally taking it and putting it in your cookbook without asking for consent and selling it for profit. Here's some clarifications about the phrase calling out. I think you may have misinterpreted my words. I didn't mean that you'd be called out for crediting someone for a recipe in your cookbook. Of course, that is the decent thing to do. Crediting our sources wherever we can is great. I meant that if you chose not to credit, you might be called out if people recognized it, as you have probably seen in Exercise for Cheat Meals video with Remington James that happened very recently, which supports my theory that he saw what happened to Rem and went, oh shit, I don't want this to happen to me, so he's using plausible deniability to cover his back. You've been following my story for months, so you've probably been well aware at how recognizable ridiculous brownies have been in the space. Literally all of my followers have been trying their best to call out creators who have tried to pass it off as their own. They recognize that this behavior is not okay. Thus, you're reaching out of goodwill, quote unquote, and offering to credit me to, quote, support you with a simple gesture, something we did not have to do, unquote, does seem suspicious. She's being a lot nicer than I would have. I would have said, fuck off. You're a liar. And you're doing this to cover your own ass, not out of the kindness of your heart. It reads more like you needed evidence to show to your audience that you had contacted me and sought my permission for my ridiculous brownies recipe. I reiterate, from our previous exchanges, you had never disputed that this was my recipe until I showed signs that I may not want to use it. Not my idea, my recipe. To my knowledge, I am the first to have ever created the combination of cocoa, protein, flour, sweetener, and diet soda. I do not say this lightly, as understand that many recipes can be very alike, but this has literally never existed before April 2020 when I created them. Nevertheless, I will not buy into your sneaky distraction tactic of debating whether we're original or not. That debate goes nowhere, and we all know it. Ultimately, you have literally told, not asked, me that you're using my recipe in your cookbook. You know your sources. You know from having followed my story for months, quote unquote, in your own words, the hard work that goes into it. At the end of the day, it comes down to your morals. She goes on to say, the messages that explicitly states I do not consent. To make this abundantly clear, so there are absolutely no misunderstandings if it ever comes down to it, I would not like and do not consent to you using my ridiculous brownies recipe or a slightly tweaked version of it in your cookbook. Although I've always known how valuable the recipe was and still is, as you seem to have realized too, since the moment I created it from scratch in April 2020. I made the conscious decision to put it out there and share it for free so that people who need it the most could access it. It does not sit right with me for you to take advantage of that and sell it for profit. You mentioned you've already put it in your cookbook without asking for my consent, so I'd appreciate it if you removed it from your cookbook. Of course, feel free to signpost your tight-knit community to my original recipe, which you've mentioned you've personally been enjoying for several months now. If you genuinely care about and want your supporters to enjoy good macro-friendly brownies with us, I'm more than happy for you to share your ridiculous brownies post with them instead of putting it behind a paywall before they can access it. If you'd like some ideas on how to do this right, you can see a good example of how this has already been done by Will Tennyson. He shared, shouted out, and linked my ridiculous brownies recipes for his subscribers to find in his video. Many wonderful creators like Jason Alexander Kim, shout out to him, Rahul Kamat, shout out to him, My Light Kitchen, I don't know who he is, but shout out to him, and so on, have since followed his lead and done so too. By all means, I'm more than happy for you to continue getting your ad revenue off it too. I also think you may have forgotten to reply to my only question. Was your intention of your original message to ask for my consent or to tell me that you were going to use my recipe for profit regardless of whether or not I consented? It seems like you may have gotten a bit carried away defending all the people who may have accidentally miscredited others, a completely separate issue from what we are addressing. You don't have to answer me, but you and your conscience will know. I know I cannot and am not even going to try to control your actions, especially as a smaller and poorer creator compared to someone powerful like yourself with 3 million YouTube subscribers, the money, and a strong fan base. All I can do is communicate my thoughts as clearly as I can to you to make it explicit that I would prefer you do not use my content and hard work for your profit. Whatever you choose to do from here on will just reveal what your true motives are if you genuinely want your followers to join us in enjoying good macro-friendly brownies and other recipes. If you believe in using your platform to lift up smaller creators whom you believe are making valuable contributions in others' lives, or if your primary goal is to make profit for personal gain, even if it's at the expense of others, regardless of those who you exploit. Rooting for you to do the right thing. All the best in your future endeavors. She is a lot nicer than I am. She not only is generous enough to not put this behind a paywall, as she stated before she considered, and let it out for free, but she also is nice enough to say, hey, do what you want with this recipe. You can even keep the ad revenue so long as this recipe remains free and you don't lock it behind a paywall. I would have told him, and here's the thing, he used his 3 million subscribers to intimidate her because she knows the power he has, and she knows the influence, and she knows the money he has. Here's the thing, I'm not fucking scared. You can take your 3 million subscribers and shove them so far up your ass they come out your nose. This pisses me off. To me, this is clear and blatant abuse of power and manipulation. And I will not fucking stand for it. Because in response to that message, Jeremy proceeds to unfollow her and ghost her for 2 fucking months. However, when she started posting about this again and tagged him in her story, he replies within 5 minutes of the story going up, saying this. Hi, although I did not follow up, just to be clear, we won't be using your ridiculous brownie recipe in our cookbook in respect of you specifically stating that you would not like us to use it, even if credits were provided. As a content creator myself, I can respect that. If you reconsider, we can always consider to include it with credits to you and your community. Just let me know. Thank you. And this upsets me. Why? Because to me, it's just like the Remington James forced apology. He is saying that because he has to. And it strikes me very much like a politician standing in front of people and trying his best to preserve his image. His little mask of friendliness and kindness broke down for a second, and then he put it back up. He started out, hey, you know, I love your recipe, it's great. I plan to put it in my cookbook. And she's like, whoa, well, are you asking me or telling me? Oh, it's already in there. Oh, well, I don't want that. Oh, well, who cares? We could have just taken it and not told you. You should be thankful and grateful to us that we actually told you. And again, with words like that, he knows the influence he has with 3 million subscribers. And she was so intimidated and scared that she didn't speak up. Because we're going to get into that. But first, I would just like to show anybody who may be skeptical, before we get into why it took so long for her to come forward with this and why it seemed like she dragged out the entire thing over the course of a couple days, because even I thought originally that this is getting dragged out a lot. Here is a screen recording that I asked her to send me showing that, look, this is in fact Jeremy Ethier. There's the check mark, like I said. Scrolling through, you can see that it is him. You can see that these screenshots weren't edited like some people may think. And if you look at the end of all of the screenshots, you will be able to see that the DM does in fact lead to his page. So to anybody who thinks that this may be fake, or it may not actually be Jeremy, or it may be manufactured, this is proof that it is not.
They got your ass on camera.
Niggas ain't got me on no fucking camera.
This is the clearest video I've ever seen. This is the most HD shit ever. This is 4K. How did they get you in 4K?
That ain't me.
But let's get into now why she didn't want to come forward. Not only was she intimidated by the power of his influence, which he knew and used to his advantage, and this is showcased in two specific aspects. One where he said, we didn't have to do this. Recipes are used all the time. We're being generous. I see that almost as a pseudo backhanded threat. Oh, you better be grateful to me. I'm the big powerful guy and I could have just steamrolled you, but I didn't. But also the fact that he didn't even introduce himself, and he had the audacity to just say, oh, let's work on another project already because the one I'm offering you is already in the works. He didn't even care. He thought that he was so famous he didn't have to introduce himself, and that because he was so famous she'd be just so excited to work with him that she would automatically say yes. And then again resorts to the, well, I didn't have to do this when she said no. Next is the gaslighting. What is the definition of gaslighting? Gaslighting means when someone forces you to question your reality. And so how he did this is what I perceived as a threat, she perceived as him telling her that there's nothing she could do because he was in the right. When he said we didn't have to do this and it's not illegal, to her it made it seem like she was in the wrong morally, and that it was perfectly a-okay for him to do this, and that's how she felt. She reached out to a couple of different people about this, and every time someone would talk about Jeremy Ethier, they would say nothing but good things. Oh, he's such a great guy. He's so humble. He cares about integrity. And so after months of that and sitting on the, well, he's right, it's not illegal, and there isn't really anything I can do about it. Am I in the wrong? She really began to question things, and it really messed with her mental state. Just to give you an idea of how badly this messed with her, I will let her explain it in her own words.
Gaslighting is also cool, because the thing is, like, I'm more than happy for you to share that I've been second guessing myself the whole time. Like, I still to this day think that I am being over dramatic and I'm overreacting, especially now that he says like, oh yeah, we're not including it because we respect your consent. And I'm like, now it just makes me doubt myself completely, even though like other people are saying no, this is not okay. I'm still like, wait, but he says he respects my consent. So I'm just so confused. Yeah, I think I'm more than happy for you to like call that out, because I think the thing with gaslighting, right, is that I can't say I'm being gaslighted. You know, it needs to be someone else, because the whole point about gaslighting is that like I don't know if I'm being gaslighted. So like that's why I think the whole time I just couldn't come forth with this, because I was like, what if people think I am being over dramatic or be overreacting? Even in me telling the story, people have already been accusing me of being over dramatic and just using this for attention. So like that makes me question myself so much, even more. Yeah, I think I don't have as many reservations now. Yeah, especially because like, I don't know, I think my reservations also very much came from the whole like I'm still so unsure of myself, whether or not I did something wrong. And then I'm also kind of scared that more people would start saying that I was in the wrong, and like I'm just the one like being dramatic, or like just being greedy, wanting money, or like that kind of stuff. I don't know, like wanting attention. And like I already questioned myself and my reality so much that like having more people add to that like probably wouldn't help, you know? So I think that's my main reservation.
Now, while I do want to make it clear that Jeremy Ethier, what his followers do, is not something that can be directly pinned on him, I do think that he knew of his reputation as kind of this golden boy that upholds integrity, and kind of used that as leverage. It's kind of a whole no one will ever believe you type situation, and so she sat on that for months, and it was eating away at her. And which is why it was so difficult for her to come forward. A lot of people said, well, it was really suspicious why she didn't name him right away, and she dragged it out over the course of a couple of days. And to be honest, even I kind of felt that way. But it makes a lot more sense now when she was constantly feeling like everything she thought wasn't true. I am someone who is very strong-willed and who is very down to fight. If you wrong me and I think you wrong me, I am perfectly fine with calling you out and saying, hey, You're a piece of crap, let's fight. Case in point, this video. But for people who are not as strong-willed as I am, I can see how that would be incredibly difficult for her. Again, Jeremy Ethier is not at fault for what his subscriber base says about him, but I do believe that he was using his reputation as leverage to kind of make her believe that what he was doing was in the right and that people wouldn't believe her. An example of this would be the whole, we are doing this because we respect your consent. With her, she was like, oh, well, you know, it really doesn't seem like he respects my consent, but, you know, maybe he does, given, you know, how everything everyone said about him and all that, like, maybe he actually does respect my consent, whereas I would be like, bull fucking shit, you're a lying sack of crap, you don't respect my consent at all, you're only doing this because of the backlash you received. If you respected my consent, you would have said that 2 fucking months ago. Fuck you, Jeremy Ethier. Ultimately, with the subtle manipulation of things, because at face value things don't seem terrible, but given the context of who he is, how he's acted, the times it took to reply, and the context surrounding when and how he would reply in various circumstances, the way I see Jeremy Ethier is very similar to situations that I've seen in the past myself. He pretends to be someone who cares about honesty and integrity and and the good of other people. However, the only thing he truly cares about is his image. He will gas you up and talk super nicely about you so long as you have something to offer him, or so long that you do not cross him. But the second you do, or the second you no longer have something to offer him, he will toss you aside, call you a bunch of names, talk a bunch of shit behind your back, and is just a general all-around asshole. And that is how I see Jeremy Ethier. And a lot of people with these types of people who put on this mask of, oh, I'm a good person, I care about other people, this manufactured bullshit that we see so much on YouTube, is that the only people that buy into it are the people that are not close to the person, because anybody close to the person can clearly see through that mask, because you can only keep up that mask for so long, and when you start to get close to the person, cracks start to slip through, or they may even drop the mask entirely. Again, I think we started to see a break in the mask and a drop in the guard when he suddenly realized he wasn't going to get what he wanted, and he said, oh, you know, you should be grateful we even reached out to you, we didn't have to. I think that was a crack in his mask, and I think that is when he started to show who he really was, instead of trying to be someone who cares about integrity, like he said when Greg called him out before, and he said he would work to better himself. Bullshit, you're working to better yourself. Look at what you're doing to this poor fucking girl. You're real tough, Jeremy, threatening this poor girl, who you basically said there's nothing you can do. I can do whatever I want, and you can't do anything about it. Well, guess what? She can do something about it. There are people that give a fuck, and now you are messing with people your own fucking size. And people who don't give a fuck. But yeah, that's the thing with these types of people. Once people get close to them, they start to realize that this mask is exactly that, a mask, and as they continue on, their lies crack, their mask cracks, and it fades away, and eventually all the lies and everything will catch up to them. And I truly do believe that that is what is happening here with Jeremy Ethier. His day of reckoning has come. At least I hope so, because God fucking damn it, he deserves to be held accountable for his actions. But that is just my thoughts for this video. And until the next one, I am not dead yet. And if you are not either, there is always a tomorrow waiting for you. Jeremy Ethier, you are a piece of human garbage, and I hope you get what's coming to you today.